What was the video game that got you into gaming as a kid? Super Mario Bros. 3 on the Nintendo. I used to make my own maps for Mario 3. I wish that Mario Maker would let you make a whole game instead of discrete levels. Good old Mario 64. Nintendo 64 gang. Super Mario 64 was also what started my love for games. Got the console as a birthday gift from my parents when I was 3. Never stopped playing games overall since then. Wish I had money to buy a Switch nowadays though. I hate not being able to play the new Smash Brothers since I loved Brawl. AoE 2. I have to credit the original Command and Conquer as well as AoE 1. But AoE 2 is definitely an old habit of mine as well. 14. Thank you. For most people it's like AoE 1 never existed. It's actually my favorite of the series. Specifically the Rise of Rome expansion. Rise of Rome was dope. I geeked on Age of Mythology. How do you upvote more than once? Orgasmic game. Doom. Probably not the best game to play as a kid, but I guess I turned out okay. Edit. Thank you for my first gold. My earliest memories of gaming are sitting on my dad's lap at the computer while he played Doom. He would point at keys and tell me to hit them so I could play along. I would watch my dad play Warcraft in his office as a kid. Then when World of Warcraft came out, I'd watch him do raids. It really was fun, and the blurbs that his army would say in Warcraft really stuck in my mind. More work. Alright. Off I go. Then. Makes me miss being a kid. You know, work. Work. Oftentimes I feel like a peon at my job. And that's the refrain in my head. Work. Work. Zug. Zug. Something need doing. Apostrophe. GoldenEye 007. I was super into James Bond movies as a kid, and getting to be him and play through the movie was just an incredible experience at the time. I couldn't believe some of the details, like the cracks in the glass around bullet holes when you shot windows and that there was actually text on the computer monitors. Edit. Holy shit, my inbox. It was an amazing game. Thanks for the comments and gold/silver. First time for either. Exclamation mark. And thanks to Steve Ellis and his last minute programming addition giving us multiplayer, sparking my love for FPS games. Craziest thing ever. The multiplayer was an afterthought tacked on at the very end. Holy shit, multiplayer was an afterthought? Question mark? GoldenEye 007 like revolutionized multiplayer. The first and probably best gaming experience of my life was 4-player GoldenEye with my public school friends. That's crazy. Nailed it. That game changed gaming to group parties. With 2-player, you would wait forever to play again, or get bored watching. GoldenEye could keep a whole room entertained. GTA. I watched my brother play it for like 2 years and finally played it myself, and never regretted it. Vice City. Duck. Vice City was a lot of fun. I wish they would just remaster that game. It's my favorite one. I think Zelda Ocarina of Time really sealed the deal for me. I got the collector's edition on the GC. I never had a memory card, so I just played through the first part of the game over and over and over and over. Same here. The feeling of being able to move on and explore Hyrule for the first time was crazy for me as a kid. I spent so much time in Hyrule it was like I was actually Link, living so long in the forest until one day I finally left to see the bigger world. It was such an experience for me at 9. I think that encapsulates a major theme in the game. You never know when greatness may be thrust upon you and leaving everything you love behind happens, and unless you kick your feet you'll never know where you'll be swept off to. Crash Bandicoot series. My first console game series. As a kid I even drew Crash Bandicoot comics about their dumb adventures. It's funny playing Mario Kart now, because looking at Bowser's castle I can see where they got Cortex Castle and Center. Same with Tiny Tiger's arena and the arena loop in Mario Kart. I have memories of being in like first grade or so, pretending the circle carpet in our classroom was a warp room with one of my friends. Then having mock boss battles together. Specifically the TNT Pogo boss fight from 2. I forget his name now though. Crash will always be my original game. Warcraft 3. Pong. Now I have to go make sure my will is up to date. At my age, I could go any day now. Edit. I'm happy this little post brought back good memories for so many people. Shit. I thought I'd be the only one of us bastards left alive. Pong was the shit. It sent me down the road toward computer science long before there were college courses for it. I'm a couple decades younger, I presume. But no doubt gaming is why I majored in CS. Computers are pretty damn cool. Tetris. I like that I could play it at any time. It was easy to feel successful. RuneScape. I have fond memories of begging my parents for membership. My parents wouldn't let me get the membership, so I mailed $5 every month to a friend I met on RuneScape using a teller's check for $5 lol, so his mom could pay my membership for me. I was like 12. My man playing 4D chess here at 12. When I was 12 I wanted Club Penguin membership, but they didn't support my currency, so I was out of luck. Diablo 1. The game that started it all for me. It's the reason I'm a computer nerd to this day. I've never been more afraid in a game than the first time I encountered the butcher. Learning I could lock him out of a room and shoot him with a low power bow as a warrior changed my life. The original Super Mario Bros. That was the turning point for gaming in general. Most games were just confined to one screen, but in SMB, the screen moves along with you, as well as a variation of different levels. Games were no longer just an activity to play over and over, they were an adventure. High scores didn't matter anymore. Now it was all about beating the game. It was a time when every new thing was revolutionary. I remember Super Mario Bros. 2 US. The big thing was that you could move to the left and the right. It was the first game I played that could do that at least. And there was no more clock. So you got to take your time and explore a bit. And then Legend of Zelda had saves. 3 of them. I remember we had gotten to World 8 on Super Mario Bros. 3 and one of my friends knocked the northeasts and it reset. That hurts the 8-year-old me that played that game. There were a few, half of which were Sierra Online games. 1. Space Quest. 2. King's Quest. 3. Bubble Bobble. 4. Commander Keen. I was scrolling looking for an Sierra Love. I had a northeasts and Mario was amazing. But when I got a 386 and my mom bought King's Quest 6 with it, I was hooked. I've played almost all the Space Quest, Police Quest, King's Quest, and Quest for Glory games. KQ6 and QG4 stand out as 2 of my favorites. My uncle also gave me his old Infocom treasure set with the hint book and those were amazing too. Arcade games were great, but I fell in love with games that told a story and required me to use my brain. Portal. What a good game to start out with. I played this in preschool with my dad and got in trouble for making a portal gun out of a sock because it was a gun. This sentence gave me wrinkles. Yeah, WTF. When did Portal come out? And they said preschool. That's when you're like 4 or 5 years old, right? So is this poster like 15 or something? Before I read this comment I sorta thought I was 15. Duck Hunt. I thought the Nintendo gun was the coolest thing ever. That a king dog. I still hate him. I can still hear the sound effect of him laughing. One of my coworkers has that sound as his work email tone. I want to hit him with a brick. Sometimes. Yeah, but you out probably miss. Then his phone will go off. StarCraft. Age of Empires 2. Half-Life. Roller Coaster Tycoon. Good times. Scrolled all the way down here just to make sure someone mentioned Half-Life. That game was great. Spyro. Riptus Rage is the first game I 100%. Same actually. Crash Bandicoot. Crash on PS1 was the first time I really went whoa at a video game. And that was after playing Mario 64. It just looked more impressive to me. I didn't even know what a PlayStation was at the time. I had only known SNES and Genesis. I remember thinking the PS1 discs were so futuristic too, haha. Crash on PS1 was the first time I really went whoa at a video game. As long as you said it like Crash when he dies. I heard that. Had a big gap. Civilization 2nd. For me it was Civilization 3rd. Got it at a book fair in 3rd grade and it instilled a love of gaming and of history/geography in me. I would read through the Civilopedia to learn about the historical basis for the units, leaders, wonders, and empires. Speaking of Civ 2nd, I never played, but one of the earliest Reddit posts I remember was about the Eternal War. Someone managed to grind into a stalemate in a nuclear wasteland of a world dominated by 3 countries in eternal war. They posted it as a curiosity and some people managed to figure out a way to finally win it. I think if you look up 3991 or Eternal War you can find it. I remember reading about that on r/civ like 5 years ago. It was really rewarding to get the status update that they had won the war and brought the world under one banner. Pokemon Red. I miss the days of being a kid, only owning a Game Boy and being forced to beat all my Gamma Boy games because I didn't have a PlayStation like all my friends did at the time. I miss playing through those Pokemon games and having to figure it out myself. I didn't have a computer and couldn't look up anything online to help. When I beat the Elite Four all by myself without any help I was so proud. Until I saw Gary at the end and was shook. I kind of hate having internet when replaying Pokemon games now. I can't help but look up what level they evolve and when they learn certain moves and all that. Kind of defeats the purpose of playing, but I still can't stop it. Honestly, I think the internet is the thing that made Pokemon games easier as much anything else. Back then you had no idea what Pokemon evolved into when, what moves they learned, or even what types were effective against other types. You had to figure all of that stuff out yourself by trial and error, which made the games feel more like a true adventure of discovery. I can tell you one thing. My starting 6 was way different back then vs. if I were to replay it and make one now, haha. I had the strangest lineup because I was clueless. I held on to some Pokemon much longer than I should have because I thought they'd evolve again. I had like a level 60 Raticat lol. For the first few gyms I remember I never ran from battles, only caught a few other Pokemon and used my starter nearly exclusively. My starter was way overpowered as a result and everything else I had barely ever leveled up, reaffirming in my mind my starter was the best. For the first, while I barely worried about types either, just brute forced my way through. I was dumb, but I loved those games. Makes me nostalgic. Sly Cooper and Kingdom Hearts both really made me understand the feeling of exploration and 100%ing a game. They really opened my eyes to how great games can be. Diddy Kong Racing was my first game though, and I was in love with it. Had to scroll down so far to find a fellow Sly player. You have earned every kind of respect. I want to be buried in her sauce. Brother's disguised missions in Italy were great, but by far Sly 2 is best Sly game. Zelda, Link to the Past. There it is. Played it before I knew how to spell a name for my character. Still my favorite. Zelda, Twilight Princess. Not my first game by a long shot, but my first Zelda. I grew up with Sega and didn't have an N64, so I missed out on Ocarina other than playing here and there at friends' houses. I had a GameCube, but never played any Zelda games on it. Didn't really like the aesthetic of Wind Waker and just desperately wanted OOT on GameCube so I could enjoy what I missed out on. When the Wii came out I got Twilight Princess and was glued to my TV hours a day after school until I finished that game. I was legitimately upset when it was over. I replayed it at least once more right then and there. I've since picked up a used N64 and played OOT. It's a great game, but Twilight Princess wins in my book. Such an epic story and game. Tecmo Bowl and the Legend of Zelda on the 8-bit Northeasts. Tecmo Super Bowl was a game I could geek out on every second of every day. I'd always play to get Bo Jackson 500 rushing yards per game. Bo Jackson and the Raiders definitely had the upper hand in that game. My cousin and I would fight over who got to play as them. Ratchet and Clank. Yep, clean fun platformer with good side element, with enough story to expand my view of what a game should be. The Final Fantasy games and Kirby, FFVI, or 3 as it was titled on SNES. For me, that was the first game I beat where the ending was a sad experience to the point it made me regret the path of actually beating the game. Sonic 2. Getting into the bonus ring rounds, man. Ship was tight. Sonic 2 bonus levels blew my mind as a kid when they came out. Heroes of Might and Magic 3 and Star Wars, TIE Fighter. Still play these from time to time. Also played some Command and Conquer, but I don't remember it much, it was so long ago. I still play a lot of HOMM3. That game has a serious community on Twitch. Mostly Russian, but not exclusively. Jak and Daxter. Since my dad played it with me when I was younger, I had to scroll so goddamn long to find this. Jak 2 was my first, but I soon played them all and more. Man, I played Jak and Daxter for hours. Then Jak 2 came out and blew my mind. Jak got a voice and a bunch of guns. Morrowind and KOTOR, I played both on my dad's Sparks when I was 7 or 8 years old. He had bought them for himself, but never got into either one. I wanted to play grown-up games, so I tried them out. The plot twist in KOTOR may seem incredibly obvious to adults, but it fucked me up. I was a little older than you when I played it, and I never saw it coming. This was the first time a video game story actually made my jaw drop. Before KOTOR I just saw video games as fun outlets. KOTOR made me realize the story potential in video games. Something on the Atari 2600, Asteroid, Pitfall, Berserk, Yars' Revenge, etc. It could have been any one of those, I suppose. Yeah, beating Pitfall seemed like a huge achievement. It was Pitfall for me, although I never completed it. Fucking scorpions. DK Country 1 and 2. Had to scroll way too low for this. Such classics. My mom always told me that when I was very young, a doctor told her that my hand-eye coordination was very bad, and that video games could help. Thank you Super Mario Bros. And thank you Doctor. Thank you Drive, Mario. Sonic Adventure 2. Wii Sports. It really was a good entry point for children who wanted to get into games. I played it when I was 8. Final Fantasy VI turned gaming from being a fun waste of time to something I could really be emotionally invested in. I once played all the way through Final Fantasy VI to impress a guy. You might think this is a cute story from my childhood in the 90s. But alas, I'm 27 years old and this happened in January. Didn't work, but got to experience FFVI, so I'll call it even. Mine were Super Mario 4 Northeasts, Sonic on Sega, Mortal Kombat on Sega, Earthworm Jim on SNES. Oh, a fellow Earthworm Jim player. What a hard game on the hardest difficulty, S. I never actually beat the game. The game gave out and stopped working before I got good. GTA San. Oh shit. Here we go again. Worst place in the world. Raleigh Heights, Bala Country. Now I ain't represented Grove Street in 5 years, but the ballers won't give a shit. Pokemon. Sonic the Hedgehog. Age of Empires 2. Ultima Ryan on Apple Plus. Link to the Past and Super Mario World. Still 2 of my favorite games. Age of Empires 2. Asteroids on the Atari 2600. Hello fellow old person. Webkins, part of my username now. One of the first games I played and it just made me happy to take care of small creatures that I could also cuddle in real life. Edit, thank you for the silver kind stranger. Final Fantasy VII and Parasite Eve. Parasite Eve is such an awesome and overlooked game. That guitar riff in the Parasite Eve intro song is so badass. And it's even better in Parasite Eve 2. Fancy Pants Adventures. It's a flash game about a guy who have some pretty pants and have to beat a penguin, then a rabbit that stole him ice cream, and then get his sister back to him after she joined a pirate group. Worth the time. Just search Fancy Pants in Google. I used to play this during school all the time. Moonlander, which my dad programmed into our Spectrum 48K in the early 80s. I was hooked after that. This is the first post I've seen on this thread where someone had to program their game in. I never had the patience to do that. Final Fantasy 3 on the SNES. Yes, I'm insanely aware that it's actually 6th. It's all good dude, my brain recorded it as FF3 and refuses to let it be corrected. Combat. Atari. We didn't call it 2600 till later. Mega Man X. I still remember the time when I was a little kid and I saw my neighbor grinding 4 lives in Armored Armadillo's stage. I saw it, thought it was awesome, and I've been a Mega Man fan ever since. Chrono Trigger. Oregon Trail. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.